The Haunted by Jonathan Wilson. We started living in the old brick house on 400 North, just west of Maine, early in the summer of 2004. We'd only been there 3 months when it happened. The summer months were fun, yet unpredictable. Lots had taken place, such as my bike being stolen, my mom renting out a giant red and blue Spider-Man bounce house in the backyard for my 10th birthday party earlier that September, and getting bit in the thumb by one of the many cats my great-grandma used to feed as I tried to pry the Wince dog leash around its neck I had foolishly used to try and walk it, those flailing moments being some of its last breaths. One unforgettable night, I walked up the cement stairs to go inside, the cold late October air whooshing against my skin. I held the screen door open for my dad to enter the mudroom, instantly smelling that sour smell of old cat food mixed with dank laundry exhaust. In our hands were bags of unpopped popcorn and candy. Mom, Sarah, and Hannah were already downstairs watching the Mormon rendition of Pride and Prejudice. Jordan was in his room playing the old SNES games on the early model Dell computer. Being the oldest, I wasn't too keen on the idea of watching that girly movie. However, the music was good, and I liked not having that constant uneasiness in my stomach when people weren't with me in that bone-cold basement. As I walked down the stairs, which gave a loud creak underfoot, the idea crossed my mind to not watch the movie and spend the time in my room reading. I had been behind on my reading log, and the Magic Treehouse book I'd gotten for my birthday a month ago, Tonight on the Titanic, was just waiting for me to begin the adventure. The makeshift storage room, which eventually became my bedroom, had previously been filled with boxes and whatever else had been packed away for safekeeping. Before that happened, however, I'd been sleeping on the futon that was always cold for the first 10 minutes until my body heat warmed up the fabric. But I never quite adjusted to the eeriness of that stale, open basement. The only light came from up the stairs behind me as I walked through the tiny laundry room with a single pull chain light bulb and a cold cement floor. Walked past my dad's pet snake, Deliverance, whose skin I'd keep when he'd shed. And instead of continuing forward into my room, I decided to turn right, entering the black living room, save the distant glow of a small old-fashioned TV in the far corner. That familiar coldness chilled my body as I sat down on the futon next to Sarah, who was snuggled up in a blanket next to Hannah, who was fast asleep in our mother's lap. The movie showed 3 pretty girls riding in a topless Jeep to church, blasting loud, obnoxious music. We smelled popcorn that my dad would soon come down and eat with us. I sat there, yawned, and rested my head on my fist. This movie's so boring, I thought. It's almost Halloween, for heaven's sake. I was in the mood to get scared. I still had not adjusted to living in Great-Grandma Irene's house. This old, creaky house that keeps me up at night. The house that my imagination gives reason to the mysterious footsteps upstairs while everyone else sleeps. Then it came to me. I knew exactly what I wanted to watch. The month or 2 prior, my mom had embarked on the treacherous journey of cleaning out the main basement, the very room we now lay nestled. A mixed smell of beer and 60-year-old house protruded from the room when she was finally able to wedge the door open enough to glance into the seemingly endless sea of waist-high trash. Beer cans, a drum set, half-eaten fast food, dirty clothes and boxes upon boxes of nonsensical trash lay unearthed. At the tail end of the second week into the excavation, my mom had not only revealed a brownish-orange carpet, but had reached the back wall. She asked us for our help with this part, handing us empty boxes, old board games, and tiny Ninja Turtle action figures to keep and have fun playing with. To me, it was the closest thing I'd come to buried treasure, yet the best was still ahead of me. Running along the back wall from east to west was a black and brown cabinet with 8 doors. We had not been able to see it until now. It sat about as tall as the garbage, and so far back that the TV and other boxes sitting on top of it looked as though they had been floating. Jordan, Sarah, and I anxiously worked together to move the remaining junk out of the way to open the first door on the left. Sarah pulled out an old Nintendo 64 console in an old boot box. Jordan and I grabbed it from her since Sarah had no interest, and we cycled through the old games a few times looking for the best ones. But it wasn't until we got to the next door where the real treasure lay. Prying open what had been shut for the past few years, we peered inside to find boxes of VHS tapes. Masking tape covered the sides and the top of each tape, which gave clues as to what we would spend the next 2 months drooling in front of the TV over. 80s cartoons, Ninja Turtles,
We're really hip.
Garfield and Friends,
I hope you bring lots of spaghetti.
I'm scared.
Looney Tunes,
Encore! Give us more! We want more! Let's have more! Give us some more!
The Animaniacs,
It's time for Animaniacs.
Goosebumps, The Goonies,
You wiggle.
The loot was all there. We excitedly popped one after another into the VHS player and watched cartoons we had never before laid our eyes on. I felt like I was transported back in time as the commercials played for M&M's, Hot Wheels, Pepsi, and baby dolls in that timeless VHS recording audio and video quality. I felt gratitude for whoever taped them and a sense of eager earnestness to watch them all. Yet I had in the back of my mind, like there was something more. Like there was something waiting for us to find it. Almost like the beating of the drum in the movie Jumanji just before they find the game. I stuck my head into the cabinet, reaching as far back as I could for the last shoebox. It too was full of VHS tapes holding more cartoons, Dennis the Menace, and random shows we had never ended up watching. And then there was one with writing in bold black ink on the masking tape that read, "The Haunted." I looked at this and stared, blood running cold as I hold it up to show my mom my find. She gives an uneasy chuckle. "Put that back." She likes seeing our excitement, but wasn't keen on the idea of us watching something scary. "Let's watch it!" I exclaimed. I felt like I was out of my body, watching myself push The Haunted into the VHS player. Seeing my family sitting with me, huddled around the tiny TV as fear begins to ride inside of me. Yet everything fades away as we all look up at the TV and begin to watch. First, static. And then we saw kids in costumes walking around the neighborhood. It's Halloween and they're laughing. The camera pans and gives the title over an old house, The Haunted. As a woman paints over a stain on the wall in her new house, she walks out, and when she returns, so has the stain. As she's folding laundry, a black and orange apparition floats past her and stares in horrified disbelief. Later in tears, the woman explains to her mom how she didn't need to yell at her. She's trying her best to make the adjustments to the new home and hasn't been the most welcoming experience for her. My heart drops as she tells her daughter, I never yelled at you, sweetheart. The next day, kids are all downstairs playing, and the mom's attention has been caught. Upstairs, she hears water in the bathtub, as if someone was splashing around. No one else was home or upstairs, which she then goes to investigate, slowly moving up to the shower curtain and quickly moving it away. In the bathtub lies nothing. No water, no human, no ghost, nothing. Sarah, freaked out, and jumps into our mother's loving arms. Turn it off! This show is evil. I have a weird feeling and I don't want to watch it. Jonathan, go throw it away in the garbage outside, please. My mother gives the direction, and I go and do as she says. I take it out of the VHS player. I go upstairs, but I have no intent on throwing it away. Intrigued, I go outside and come back with the video still in hand. And later that day, put it back in the same spot in the shoebox where we found it. Up until this moment, however, that I'm sitting on the futon with the thought to pull it back out and go upstairs without anyone knowing and finish what we started. With the haunted in hand, I go upstairs, and to my left, I walk through the kitchen and pass a tiny room with orange chair that had my great-grandma would always sit in. Curve down the C-shaped hall, past the bathroom and master bedroom on my left, entering the spacious living room. The room sat furnished as it must have been 2 decades after the first move-in, sometime around the late 50s. 2 brown corduroy chairs and a long couch sat motionless in front of the old tube TV, bunny antennas and surrounded by fancy lampshades, which, with the lace, gave a yellow, faded light to the room. I stand there alone, not wanting to be. Setting the VHS tape on the chair, I run downstairs, sneakily whispering to my sister Sarah to come upstairs and to then find Jordan, as suspected, on the computer in our room playing snooze games. When I tell him what I'm up to, he hesitantly says, "Sure." Mom, Dad, and Hannah were still downstairs watching their movie as Jordan, Sarah, and I snuck our way upstairs and sat down. I rewound the movie and pressed play. We rewatched those beginning scenes which had haunted my mind for the past 2 months. Thinking about those beginning scenes, which, all alone in my room, sent me running upstairs as fast as I could. We soon got to the part of the movie we hadn't seen before. I quickly regretted my decisions when the movie progressed further and began to feel bad for bringing Sarah and Jordan into this, and for not disposing of it when I had been instructed. Sarah and Jordan, each looking back at me at the scary parts, as if to say, I thought older brothers were supposed to protect us younger siblings and keep us safe. Jordan was the first to leave, getting too scared and going back downstairs. Then we got to the part that is burned into my memory. The part that Sarah would have nightmares for weeks about. The dad was home alone, watching TV. He hears a noise upstairs and goes to the stairs to investigate. He didn't believe any of the stories about the house that his wife would tell him. All of a sudden, a headless ghost woman appears at the top of the stairs, and the man stands frozen in fear, but screaming as he attacks him seductively. Sarah screamed and ran downstairs as fast as she could. I knew I was dead. I was so dead. Caught red-handed right there as my dad would soon be up in response to the cries of his sobbing daughter. But to my own surprise, I didn't care that I was busted. I had felt bad for what I had done, and I could not stand being alone in that room for another second as I too ran out, the movie still playing. What the heck is going on up here? What are you showing your siblings? This confrontation in the kitchen then followed into the room as both Jordan and Sarah were now back too. Poor Sarah was crying her eyes out. I told my dad all that had happened, where I had found it, how I kept it, and then about the part that had just terrified us and sent Sarah screaming downstairs. He insisted we show it to him, either out of sheer curiosity or wanting to gauge how scary it was, I don't know. But what I do know is that I watched as my dad rewound that tape, that as the scenes moved backwards with the 3 static bars across it, he hadn't quite gotten to the part yet. He kept rewinding and rewinding as I stared intently at the screen, not wanting to. All of a sudden, we're back at the confrontation scene at the beginning of the movie with a woman and her mother, and I told my dad to stop. He pressed play, and sure enough, we'd reached the first few beginning scenes. Fast forward, this isn't it. You went back too far, I said, hiding the rising fear as he slowly follows my direction. In the back of my mind, I knew what was coming. Fast forward past scene we had just watched. And then all of a sudden, it's back at the scenes we haven't seen yet. And I didn't know what to do, but to tell him to stop and to go back. I finally followed my mother's instructions, took the VHS tape with me outside into the cold blackness, and watched as it fell into the deep, dark, rotting emptiness. For we had rewound and fast-forwarded 2 more times and had not been able to find the scene.